The U.S.'s relationship with India has been described by President Joe Biden as the most defining of the decade. But observers in India believe that ties will change depending on who wins the White House. Neha, Poonia has more.
From bespoke bags to luxury belts and handcrafted homewares, Alpine Apparels makes them all. 2/3 of the premium leather goods produced in this factory on the outskirts of New Delhi will end up in upmarket US stores. For years, Indian companies like Sanjay Leekers could export thousands of products to the US tariff-free under what's known as the Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP. That is until 2019, when the Trump administration withdrew the special trade privileges for India.
See, when the GSP went away, it increased our landed cost into the United States by about ranging from 4 to 6%, which is, it's a substantial cost.
That trade policy was never reinstated, and Mr. Leekar is worried that another Trump presidency would bring more action against Indian exporters. India exports far more to the US than it imports, putting the bilateral trade deficit at over $45 billion in New Delhi's favor. Trump has repeatedly called India a big abuser of tariffs and has vowed to hit hard if he wins the election.
I do hope that nothing drastic happens, and if that does happen, I think then the Indian government needs to come into play and support us in ensuring that we are able to meet the additional tariffs or duties that come into play.
Trump has also often accused India of not allowing American firms to access the subcontinent's vast market through the use of high tariff barriers. But experts say that policy is aimed at giving domestic companies a fair chance to compete with their better skilled American counterparts.
Tariffs are not here to stay. Probably the government wants to provide a kind of 3 to 4 years framework to these companies so they scale up, and the moment they scale up and they break even, the tariff will come down.
Experts agree that the last 4 years of Biden's presidency have brought more stability on the trade and strategic front. Biden embraced New Delhi wholeheartedly, hosting Modi on his first state visit to the US this year. President Biden's time in office saw India and the US settle trade disputes bilaterally, and for the first time the US also shared critical technology with New Delhi to allow it to manufacture key military hardware at home. Now, analysts say the aim behind Biden's move was to allow India to become equipped to take on China in the region, which is why he also prioritized strengthening the Quad, a grouping of Australia, Japan, India, and the United States. While Trump could be harder on China on trade issues, he may not continue the Biden administration's regional security strategy.
Biden has worked pretty systematically to build institutional groups to create a better balance. If Trump retains them and, the process continues, then there is one thing. But if he decides to disrupt their functioning, then it would be, a fairly unstable situation.
Ambassador Meera Shankar served as India's envoy to the US in 2009. She says both Trump and Harris could pose different challenges for New Delhi. When Harris first met Modi in 2021, she publicly raised the issue of human rights, a topic that had previously only been discussed behind closed doors. Analysts say she could also exert more pressure over India's continued engagement with Russia. New Delhi imports 2/5 of its oil from Russia and has so far refused to publicly criticize Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
Well, I think the US will have to decide, how much it prioritizes the strategic relationship with India. We have China as a neighbor, we have Pakistan as a neighbor, and beyond that, Central Asia and Russia. So clearly, if there are difficulties with one great power in the neighborhood, India would like to have the flexibility to have good relations with the other great power and not push it completely into the Chinese corner. So I think the US will have to take a hard look at this, and they have.
A new unknown is how Trump and Harris might react to recent allegations of Indian officials being involved in assassination plots in the US and Canada. Washington says a now former Indian government employee was allegedly involved in a murder-for-hire plot on US soil. Canada has made similar allegations involving Indian envoys, which New Delhi has rejected, sparking a diplomatic standoff. Experts say the incoming administration, whether led by Trump or Harris, could come under pressure to demand more public accountability from India, and that could add a new hurdle to bilateral ties. Neha, Poonia, CNA, New Delhi.